When will travel finally get back to normal? Well, the sector has been one of the hardest hit industries throughout the pandemic. The industry continues to adapt as it navigates through these murky waters, and many are left struggling to survive, to be honest. As restrictions in some areas of the world start to lift, many travelers and industry experts are left wondering what the future holds. Let's head over to Nancy Hungerford for more. Hey, Nan.
Hi, Martin, that's right. And if you're anything like me, you are just anxiously waiting to get back to Changi Airport here in Singapore and get on a flight. But really, I mean, this whole idea of fulfilling wanderlust is a small issue compared to the jobs that are at stake. Some 100 million jobs were thought to be at risk due to this pandemic, and lots of questions for the executives and investors with exposure to travel and tourism. So I'm delighted to say that I have a panel of industry leaders that are here to help us get through some of these big questions. Right now, we are joined by Jane Sun, who is the CEO of Trip.com Group, which is, of course, China's largest travel company. And Tony Fernandes, also with us, the CEO of AirAsia, Malaysia's low-cost carrier, and also with us today, Ritesh Agarwal, the founder and CEO of Oyo Hotels and Homes, which is India's largest hospitality startup with a huge global footprint. So thank you to you all for joining us today for this exciting discussion. And Jane, I'd like to start with you because we often look to China as a model of the first in, first out recovery model, if you will, in this pandemic. Of course, recent cases of COVID in the southern part of China serve as a reminder that it's just so difficult to declare victory in this pandemic, though. Give us an update on where you are in terms of what the recovery looks like for your business.
Sure. Thanks for having me. The government has controlled the virus very well. To our delight, today, Guangzhou province announced they have 0 new cases today. So again, that's a strong demonstration that the government has done an excellent job controlling the virus. For domestic travel, we have seen strong growth ever since the May of this year. What we have seen is that consumers are gaining more confidence as more vaccination is done. And last week, we have reached 900 million people have already taken the vaccine, which we're very excited about. In terms of the growth, if you look at the May 1st holiday, the highest day, we were able to grow our hotel rooms by 70% compared to 2019 pre-COVID level. For air ticket, we were able to grow 30% compared to pre-COVID level, and rental cars 300% compared to the pre-COVID level, which is very exciting. So we look forward to a strong rebound for the domestic travel in China. Outside of China, really depends on the rate for the vaccination.
Yeah, and Jane, that was going to be my next question. I mean, are you disappointed by the slow vaccination rollout in other places in Asia, and how has that negatively impacted your business, Jane?
I think it takes some time for people to gain more confidence on the data. But once people have seen the vaccination has protected the population very effectively, more and more people will accelerate the process. China has done an excellent job. Within 1 week, we were able to add another 100 million people who have taken the vaccination. And also pharmaceutical companies and Pfizer's, all these companies are working together to collaborate. So I'm very much looking forward for the further collaboration among nations, among different companies, so that we can give the vaccination to the people who cannot afford it in a very rapid manner.
Okay, thanks, Jane. And I want to bring in Tony on this one because, Tony, I mean, if you look at some of your key markets where the vaccination rollout has been slower, just give us an update. I mean, how concerning is this to you? Because when we've spoken to you previously, you were very hopeful that a vaccine rollout would lead to international borders opening, and that just hasn't been the case so far in some of your key markets. What can you tell us?
Yeah, no, I remain very optimistic. It's all about supply. And, Southeast Asia was a little bit lower down the supply chain, but vaccination rates have gone up in Malaysia. We went from 60,000 a day to yesterday was a record at 215,000, and they're looking at 400,000. If you were to do a vaccination chart, which I posted on my Instagram, it's almost a straight line for Southeast Asia. So the distribution is there, the demand is there, and now supply is becoming consistent. So I'm forecasting August, September, most countries in Southeast Asia would be hitting 60% in terms of first vaccination. But the great thing is there is light at the end of the tunnel now. We know there's an end. And obviously, we can see what's happening in Europe and America. So I remain very optimistic.
Okay, I mean, August, September will be here before you know it, so that is good news. But Tony, I mean, in your discussions with organizations such as IATA who are testing a vaccine passport, do you have any idea of when we could be getting closer to an internationally recognized vaccine passport? That no doubt would be a huge boost for the business.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic, to be honest, on an internationally recognized vaccine passport. I'm not sure the world can organize itself in that way, but you're seeing people accepting various forms of proof for vaccines, passports. Within AirAsia, we built an open system which allow people to put a digital copy of their vaccine passport in any way, shape, and form. So more bilaterally, governments are sorting it out, and some accept paper, some accept digital. Eventually, I believe, there will be a digital passport. But I mean, the world functioned on paper passports for a long time with the WHO certificate. So I don't think that's going to be an impediment. What I think is needed, though, is consistency for the travel industry. If you've got 2 vaccines, okay, you don't need a quarantine. That seems to vary country to country. I think there's got to be an acceptance of all vaccines should be approved, that are approved by the WHO should be acceptable. I don't think countries should say, oh, you can only come in on this vaccine or you can only come in on that vaccine. So those are things a little bit more of a challenge. But I'm optimistic that eventually common sense will prevail and things will move in the right direction.
Okay. And Ritesh, let's bring you into this conversation because I know you've already seen quite a correlation between vaccine rollouts and what it means for your business in various parts of the world. But you also have a good view as to just how uneven the recovery in the industry has been in different parts. And of course, in India, we know you've just been so hard hit by this second wave of the virus. So bring us up to speed on what you are seeing in the recovery.
Thank you for having me here, Nancy. I share the optimism that Jane and Tony mentioned about. That is, vaccination is the only comprehensive and conclusive way to fight the impact of coronavirus. Within that, I think there are 2 to 3 important learnings we've had in our business. The first, like my industry colleagues were mentioning, domestic tourism is the biggest creation of the pandemic, and we were always 95% or so domestic tourism driven. Now that has further increased. Vaccination has had 2 impacts, which are data points that we've seen. The first is countries where vaccination percentages are higher, like US, Europe, etc. We have seen that the bookings have substantially risen. Take an example of Europe because a lot of people talk about US. So let me try and take Europe's example. Europe just 3 months back was 10 to 20% in vaccination in the key countries that we operate in Northern Europe. Now they are all at a single jab of 40% plus in terms of ranges. And that has meant that our daily bookings for the summer season have more than doubled. So there is a direct correlation of vaccination, which is why I think I agree with Tony's view of come August or September, being Southeast Asia and India being right on a very attractive place in the vaccination rates. And the second data point we've seen is that the hotels where the staff is vaccinated, we give them a certificate called Vaccine Aid. Hotels receive 3 times higher RevPAR than the hotels in the neighborhood. The consumers see this of confidence. So net, I believe travel is here to stay. Domestic travel will lead the recovery, but that vaccination is the only comprehensive and conclusive way of resolution. In India, we are vaccinating a few million people every day now. And I hope that, like Tony mentioned, by the last quarter of this year, we will be in a much better shape.
Okay, so that gives us a timeline there. And of course, our hearts go out to all your employees and members of the company that have been through such a difficult time recently. And hearing how much you're all talking about this importance of confidence for the traveler that is tied to the vaccine. Jane, I'm just wondering if you've seen similar patterns. I mean, in your surveys, when it comes to those who are willing to go online and book trips, do you have any indication as to how critical the vaccine is playing in this willingness?
Yes, definitely. We have seen strong pent-up demand through the data on our search volume. People are very interested in coming to visit Europe, Australia, New Zealand, etc. However, the border still is not totally open. So we are helping our customers to plan their trips. For example, with Singapore, we did travel online to promote their destination. And we have observed three major trends through our customers. First of all, people are paying more attention to health measures. So hotels, airlines, local operators who can offer masks, hand sanitizers, these companies can get very good volumes. Secondly, consumers prefer to travel within much smaller groups. They normally will book a car, book a tour guide, and travel with their close friends and close families, rather than get on a bus with 50 strangers. And third one is that they prefer to choose packages which have flexibility in change, cancel, and delay their trips because something might happen. The flexibility becomes very important. Now, adding the vaccination into the play, definitely we have seen consumers who have taken the vaccine tend to travel more often and tend to travel further within China. So that's very positive in our mind.
Okay, and I hear you saying flexibility is key for prospective travelers. And Tony, what does this mean at the airline? I mean, when you're talking about measures you had to take, whether it's waiving cancellation fees, giving flyers or potential flyers more certainty, I mean, are these changes that you're going to be able to claw back? Because ultimately, aren't we talking about things that are just going to be additional costs for the airline?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a tricky position because that's kind of been our model. But I think we adapt. For the moment, we have to give flexibility because there's too much uncertainty. But, you know, as I said, as the vaccines roll out, as certainty comes back, look, I've been through so many crises from SARS, bird flu, terrorism, etc. What is most important is demand is there. People want to travel. And we're seeing it very, very strongly. As Ritesh said, domestic will lead the way. But, you know, we will go back to the way we were. It's going to take, 6 months or 7 months after the opening of borders. But once certainty is back, then we'll have to bring in some of our older policies. But for the moment, there has to be flexibility. There's no two way about it. But technology has also helped that from what maybe was some rigid policies in the travel industry. Technology is allowing us to be much more flexible in dealing with a bit more flexibility and managing that extra cost.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And Ritesh, this is something you have a lot of experience with through your various digital platforms. But I do wonder, I mean, in this crisis era, as Tony has just characterized it, it seems like it's been a catalyst for change for all of you in many ways, but Ritesh, you as well. And I mean, to the point that it's forced you to look at certain markets that weren't performing. And I wonder if it's called into question this original model that a lot of the vision fund companies, such as yours, backed by SoftBank, of course, were looking at scale at any cost, growth at any cost. Has this forced you to change that mentality?
So to begin with, there is that I think the COVID is frankly an enabler for transformation in companies. And I think in our company, definitely we've used this as an opportunity to make 4 to 5 big transformations that I feel will be valuable, not just for the times of. I think in some form, it sets us up as a future-proof business. And let me share some examples of these. You called out one of them, which is focusing on markets. We looked at this and said that we want to make sure that we double down in geographies where we have large consumer footprint and large small hotel and homeowner footprint for whom we do our job. And we hence double down in India, Southeast Asia, and Europe. And of course, markets such as China, which are a critical market for us, we said that we'll continue investing in technology-based innovation there. The second thing that we did was, after using focus as an important talking point, we doubled down in terms of our product and engineering efforts. I almost spent 75% of my time on product and engineering in the last year and a half. Interesting examples of how our hotel owners are also getting future-proofed. An example of that is we've launched a trials program where our hotel owners give a free room cost room night under OYO Discover in order to incentivize the customer to first try the hotel and 3 or 4 times. We've seen that being a great enabler of consumers coming back over and over again. Our cost structures have structurally changed because earlier, if our customers were served by chat or calls, now primarily by chat bots. That has a structural margin change. And most importantly, I think on the hotel side, the speed in which we were growing, we could not focus on our products and services for them fully. It gave us a breather of a couple of quarters to really just focus on quality of service for our merchants, thereby improving our NPS rates with them. So I think COVID crisis, not just for us, for a lot of companies, has given this opportunity also of transformation, which will allow them to now again grow, but grow with a much more thoughtful, much more organized and very strong, new age technologies that they would have created behind themselves. So I think all of and why I think, and the speed of pivot of sort of saying that, stable travel, etc., have allowed us to fully recover our gross margin dollars from pre-COVID levels and also be markets like India and Europe broke even in the quarter of this year. Hopefully, we can hold on to this as the markets come back and make sure that we keep these habits for all the times to come.
All right, Ritesh, we'll come back to you on that in a minute. But Tony, I mean, once again, I want to go back to what you were saying in terms of harnessing technology in this crisis. And AirAsia, too, you've been pivoting, if you will, to other business areas, taking on the super app industry, looking at things like food delivery as well and logistics. So one, has this crisis accelerated that push? And two, how do you intend to compete with all the players in this super app space? I mean, especially with big giants like GoTo, Now, and Grab.
Yeah, competition is in my blood, right? We started in an airline with 2 planes against big national carriers, and we ended up a bigger space. The journey's just started, and we've been in digital from the beginning. Our biggest asset is data. Just pre-COVID, we carried 90 million people and very, very rich data. So we've used that data, and we started this journey before COVID, and obviously, COVID accelerated it because we had a lot of time to sit down and analyze and plan. And so we pivoted into 3 kind of digital businesses. Our super app, a very, very strong logistics business. And I think that's going to be a massive growth potential for AirAsia as e-commerce grows and cross-border commerce grows. We would be the quickest delivery option for anyone selling cross-border. And finally, fintech. We've created a fintech business where we're applying for banking licenses throughout Southeast Asia. But we've been able to do that because of very rich airline data. And I think that's something many analysts haven't realized, that actually airline data is very, very rich. The second, in terms of competing, there is still a huge market. This isn't a zero-sum game. There's going to be many people who can fit into different places. And finally, we have a slight advantage, and a lot of good work has been done by a lot of these super apps, and we can pick and choose and kind of build a model much quicker and much cheaper. So, the one benefit of COVID has been to give us focus. And rather than put our hands in the sand and cry, we've used this as an opportunity to pivot, as Ritesh said, re-look at transformation some of our areas. And we look forward to being a group now that is not just only an airline, but a digital group as well.
Tony, I hear you saying that you in many ways are motivated by competition, but do you think your shareholders are along for the ride here? Because of course COVID has sent the share price on a bit of a roller coaster, and some of the projects you're talking about just take a great deal of money to further invest in. I mean, what would your message to them be?
Yeah, we've never been good at spending money. We were tight because we've never had a lot. We haven't had big sugar daddies like SoftBank, etc. So we believe we can, and we've grown from 200,000 passengers to 90 million passengers, I said. So we believe that we have different ways, different channels of creating demand, and we believe we can be profitable quite quickly. So it's not just, as I said, we came from having only 2 planes and not having the same money as national carriers. So we believe that using our data, using our brand, and being very specific, we can build some very nice niches that are cash flow positive and profitable. Shareholders, that's out of my league. Either they'll believe in us and buy our shares and go for the ride, or they'll think that we're crazy.
All right, I guess time will tell on that one then, Tony. Jane, let's bring you back in here. And if you could just elaborate a bit on the lessons that you had from the pandemic and the ways in which it forced you to pivot.
Yes, we always share a principle that customer first, partner second, and Trip.com the third. And today on my background, it's our customer service day. We always think about our customer first. As you said, China was the first country into coronavirus crisis. So at that time, we stand up for our customers and prepaid the refund to our customers to make sure they are very well taken care of. And the second thing is we also established a natural disaster relief fund and injected 1 billion into our ecosystem and work with our bankers to inject 10 billion RMB as a small, medium-sized loan for our partners. So the ecosystem is protected. And the third one is we also encourage our service team to stand up for our customers. And today I travel from Shanghai to Nantong to support our service team, which has a very young average age of 20 years old. These kids day in and day out, 24 hours nonstop, working in our call centers to cover the different regions. So the lesson we learn is that no matter what happened, whether it's a natural disaster or something that's unexpected, whether there is a tsunami in Japan, earthquake in Nepal, or Las Vegas shooting many years ago, our team can contact our customers within minutes. And within the very next day, we'll be able to bring back our customers back to their home country, which I feel very proud of. So the lesson we learn is always put our customer first.
Indeed, and I'm sure many companies in the industry are now putting an emphasis on customer acquisition. Jane, just finally, let's get you to wrap here for us as we started with you. I mean, where would you say we are if 100% down the road looks like we can declare victory back to a pre-pandemic normal? How long will it take to get there?
We segment our business into three pieces. One is domestic travel. We are about 90% there. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be 100% totally recovered. The second piece is outbound travel, which we are very much looking forward to. We help our local travel destinations to market for the popular destination. We're waiting for the border to be opened. The third one is bringing customers from the rest of the world to China, which we are also very eager to do. But again, I think the vaccination is going to be the key to bring people together through travel.
Okay. All right, and I'll put the same question to Ritesh, you first. How long will it take to declare victory and perhaps a post-pandemic recovery?
I think that's a very tough question for me to answer, Nancy, just given, I have learned that, you should focus on things that you can control. This is just something that I wish I could, but I'm just, we are all just parts of the overall system. But I think there are two things I would say. The first is, I think, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It is very visible. I'm seeing this with early results coming in US, UK, and Europe are at their highest that we have ever seen in a market like that of the US. I hope that that same trends will replicate in other parts of the world as comes back. And people really want to travel. India, as you know, went through a significant wave 2 of the crisis, and it had significant human costs. But as we are of it with 66% drop in cases, in the last week itself, we've seen that our reservations have more than doubled from what they were a week back for people just going right outside their city. So I think humanity's aspiration to try and travel and see the world, combined with vaccine to bring safety, gives me positivity that the will end soon. Travel will, of course, never be the same again. It will be different. Instead of going far, going near will be the new thing. Instead of going to a hotel with 600 rooms, people will prefer going to holiday homes. But in the new world, travel will find a very prominent place, is my belief. The question is vaccination and the time it takes.
Okay, Ritesh, thank you for that. And Tony, concluding thoughts on that one?
It's glass half full, glass half empty. victory's there because you already see China 90% domestic recovery, America, etc. So victory's there. When do we? Because we know it's only a matter of time before COVID is controllable, and it's something we're going to have to live with, as we do with many other viruses. I'm going to put out and say, by June of next year, we're going to see a pretty similar place to where we were post when COVID hit, so February of last year. I think by June of 2022, we'll see a much more normal world. I think as some of the other panelists, people will change some of their habits, but habits don't stay the same for long. And people will go back to the way. I do agree short-haul travel will be a big beneficiary. Domestic will be a big beneficiary in the short term. But eventually, travel patterns will go back to the way they were.
All right, well, that is rather encouraging. And hopefully this time next year, then, we can do this in person. Thank you all for taking part. Really appreciate it. Ritesh, Tony, and Jane, thank you so much.